Alrighty, welcome back to the Gaming Wisconsinbly podcast. I'm here with Dave.
Hey.
And we are going to talk about a, I don't know, what do you want to call this? NES multi-genre games?
Yeah.
Alright.
NES experiments.
Experimental games.
Yeah.
So yeah, what these are games that are basically, well, like it sounds like, multi-genre. So they might be one part beat 'em up, they might be one part platformer, 2 parts driving game, 3 parts shooter.
Yeah.
Can't remember if there's anything else that I'm missing, but...
Rail shooter, yeah.
Light gun shooter in one case.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
We're just going to talk about some of these games. I don't know if this will cover every game on the system, but it's going to be pretty darn close.
Most of them, yeah.
Not counting Famicom, because who knows.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
This will count the American released games, and we will get started. Dave, which one do you want to cover first?
I want to start with Vice Project Doom.
And who made this game?
This was developed by ICOM and published by Sammy Corporation. If you don't know ICOM, they also worked on games like Mayfat Conspiracy and Totally Rad on the NES.
Ooh, I like Totally Rad.
Yeah, and
okay.
Blaster Master Boy on the Game Boy. And then later on, they separated and started making Neo Geo games like Polestar.
Oh. I didn't even know there was a Blaster. Is that OG Game Boy?
Yeah, OG Game Boy, black and white.
I might have to try to play that.
Yep.
Have you ever played it? Just curious.
Yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't really have the overworld and it's like just the dungeon levels kind of. It almost, I think you have like a bomb and a gun, so it's almost a little like Bomberman-ish. It's a
okay,
weird.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll track it down sometime.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. So my experience with this, I mean, this is one of those games that I've had forever, and I've never bothered to really play through.
Yeah, I've wanted to play it for a while. I've heard it's good.
Yeah, I've always heard, like, hey, play this game. It's been sitting on my shelf. And I think I played it like through the first stage or two when they did the Switch Virtual Console. I don't really know what they call it now, but the one where you get, like, free NES games or whatever if you sign up for their yearly subscription. So I know they dumped it out on there, but... Yeah, so what did you think of Vice Project Doom? It's quite a story-driven game. There's a lot of, like, almost Ninja Gaiden-esque cutscenes.
Yes, it's very... It to me, it's a Ninja Gaiden clone, but then they threw some extra stuff in to make it more interesting. And it's not a bad Ninja Gaiden clone.
It's an how do I put it? It's like a dime store Ninja Gaiden, but it looks way better than Ninja Gaiden. I don't like. It's strange.
Yeah, it's got some good basic graphics. It's got some good cutscenes. It's got some good bosses.
It's got decent music. I can't remember. There was like one track that I remember that was like very unique for the NES, and it was in one of the later levels.
Yeah, 9-1.
It might have been that.
That might have been the last level. I think has had some pretty interesting music. A few standout bits, but everything's pretty much good, and then 1 or 2, good, maybe great.
Yeah, and what makes this a multi-genre game?
Yeah, so this your basic stages are your Ninja Gaiden-esque action platformer, and then you got some rail shooter rail shooter levels, and then you've got some driver shooter levels.
Kind of like a Spy Hunter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I noticed first, I think the first level is actually one of the driving levels, isn't it?
Yes, it starts right off with that, which is weird. That's an interesting way to start, but it's exciting. It's interesting.
It is. I think there was just so much crap on the screen that, like, as a first stage, it really kind of took me out of it right away, and that's probably why I hadn't played through a lot of the rest of the game.
Yeah. So
I was kind of turned off by the driving.
Yeah, it's over kind of quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not super hard, and it's not as precise maybe as you'd expect. You just kind of get through it.
I got kind of muddled in the graphics, or I couldn't tell like sometimes what was a power up or a thing that I was going to hit. Yeah. But at least they like give you the generosity of a very large life bar that never seems to go away.
Yeah.
And that kind of carries out throughout most of the game as well. But
yeah. I will say this game. One thing I wanted to go back to the box art on the Japanese version is much more of a noir detective kind of, guy in a trench coat with a gun.
Okay.
Whereas in the U.S., it's action hero with a lady on his arm.
It kind of looks like Bruce Willis.
Yeah, it's Bruce Willis.
It's like straight up Die Hard
it
movie poster.
So it's kind of interesting how they marketed it, but it works.
And the character in the game doesn't look like Bruce Willis.
No.
So that's kind of... I mean, there's a lot of NES games like that just don't matter. Like, Ghost Lion is always the one I go back to.
Yeah.
Like, the main character does not look like the box art at all.
No, he looks much more like the box art in the Japanese version, I think.
Okay.
Like I said, it's more, he's a detective-ish guy,
Yeah.
It's
a detective-ish, Ryu something or other.
Yeah.
But
The game has unlimited continues,
which is
I
very
like.
nice.
It has a level select code.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird. You can actually select like boss levels and stuff.
I accidentally did that.
So
in a good way.
that was the thing is, you have the problem we have in Ninja Gaiden is you get to the last level and you have to go through the whole thing and beat the boss, and if you die, you have to go all the way back. You must go back. The famous.
Is that 6-1 that you always get stuck at?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And whereas this one fixes that problem because you can use the level select and you can practice the boss,
which is very nice.
You can just, because that's what I did. I just went and practiced the boss over and over and over because it's an unusual boss, and if you had to go through all these stages and then practice.
Are you talking about the last boss in particular?
Boss. Yeah, he's not really hard, but it's a weird style of play. So we'll get to that. But you can get to a specific level and practice it till you get good, and more games should have that.
What I will say, too, is there's a very generous checkpoint system for Vice Project Doom.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, let's say you die at a boss, which I died many times in the final boss. There's actually a few hard boss fights.
There's a few.
Like, yeah, I think even the first boss, I think, was like kind of a stopper for me.
Some of them, if you don't use grenades, they're way harder than they need to be.
Yeah.
I didn't find myself using the gun much, but the grenades make the difference for some bosses, and that means you have to have enough ammo. Which means you have to have not been sucking it up in the level.
Right. But it's like, okay, so you have, 3 to 4 something lives, and then infinite continues.
Infinite continues, yep.
So it's like, okay, getting to the boss is generally fairly easy. There's maybe one level that I found, very hard.
It's generous with the life ups.
Yeah, there are tons of life ups. Your life bar is huge. You don't take that much damage from hits, but you'll take 1,000,000 hits. But, it's not that, it's not like Ninja Gaiden where, you take a few hits and you're like, oh, shit, I gotta, figure this out.
Well, and it's not like Ninja Gaiden where enemies respawn like crazy. You can take it slow and throw grenades at things and avoid taking hits if you take your time.
Yeah.
Or you can just, rush through it Ninja Gaiden style and just keep taking things out with your whip. Let's talk about the whip.
Wait, what was the whip?
The whip is your main weapon.
That thing's a whip?
It's a whip.
I thought it was a sword.
No, it's like a cyber whip or something weird like that.
No shit.
Yeah, which explains to me. I think we talked about it's slow, right? Like you attack.
It's weird.
You attack and you think you attacked fast enough, but you didn't. You attacked a half second too slow. You have to attack before you. That's because it's a whip. It has it's kind of like Castlevania. It has a little bit of a wind up time, kind of.
I never knew that. Okay.
That's why I think they intentionally did it, but it broke my brain because through so much of the game I was just a half second too short to hit that guy or to not take damage from that guy.
So to kind of equate that to Ninja Gaiden, I just want to say one more thing about the checkpoint system. If you die in a boss, it checkpoints you to basically right before the boss. So you have a few chances usually to grind out a boss fight.
Yep.
We'll talk about the bosses later. But that's always nice. If you do have to use a continue, you start all the way back at the beginning of the level. Yep. The levels are short.
Yep.
Whatever. But one thing I wanted to say about, I guess, the whip is that, yes, the attack frames are strange.
Yeah, it's from behind you to in front of you. Above and behind your head to in front of you.
But incredibly quick.
Well, once it gets started, yes. But it's delayed when it starts the animation. Kind of.
What I'm saying is in Ninja Gaiden, your sword with the attack animation, the sword hits it gives you a lot of grace period.
Yeah.
Where it's okay, you can swing the sword early, you hit stuff.
Sure,
you can swing it late, you hit stuff. In Vice Project Doom, you have to hit the enemy perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you get hit, and your hitbox is huge, and the enemy hitboxes are weird.
So there's a weird workaround for that. You can duck down and actually run at full speed and attack. And it makes your hitbox about half as tall, but your whip still does the same thing. So the game kind of encourages you to duck run everywhere you go to take less damage, which is weird, and that's why I didn't figure that out until late in the game. That's why I had so much trouble at the end boss.
You basically texted me that, because I was sitting there what the fuck am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, that there's different ways to beat that boss, but the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to duck underneath him and be in between his legs and be attacking him.
Yeah.
And you have to go back and forth in between his legs to avoid his attack with his head underneath or whatever.
Are you talking about the final boss?
The final boss, yeah.
Oh, I didn't beat him that way at all.
Well, there's a different way to beat him, yeah. But the official way, I guess, to beat him is, you stand underneath his legs, and there's 2 spaces on left and right underneath his legs. And when he's attacking to the right, you have to be in the left, and vice versa. And you have to be ducking the whole time, moving back and forth, attacking him. It takes some practice.
That sounds sounds very hard. The way I beat them was like grenades.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you get in there with enough grenades, yeah, that's great.
Okay, so if you notice about grenades, Dave.
Yeah.
So you get like X amount of them. It's kind of like their weapon system is sort of like Batman.
Yeah.
Where you pick up weapons as you kill enemies.
Except that they have different ammo meters.
Right.
They're not shared between the grenades and the gun.
Yeah. Batman's better. I'll just put it out there. But anyway. So you have grenades, but when you get down to 0 grenades, it actually does refill. It auto refills. Yes. It takes like 5 seconds, but it'll give you like 2 grenades, for example, every 5 seconds.
Sure.
If you're at 0.
Sure.
So like for the bosses, for the most, this is how I beat them, is like, okay, you throw out all your grenades, you get them down to like half health, then you basically dodge, regenerate your grenades, hit them, rinse, repeat. I mean, the bosses, like, they take a while when you do that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming if you beat them with the sword, it's like super quick, but
it's quicker.
Man, it's hard.
It's quick, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like that you wouldn't know. The game doesn't teach you about the duck running thing. You have to learn that that's a thing that it wants you to learn how to do.
Maybe the manual says.
Maybe.
I don't think I have the manual though. So
I'm not used to a game. I mean, there are games you can duck or where you can duck and attack, but not where you run while you're ducking. And do all the things that you would normally do. It's weird.
That's also kind of like Ninja Gaiden, where you don't know that you can do like the jump and multiple attack.
Yeah.
You know, if you press down and attack while you're jumping.
Yeah.
But you do like sort of figure it out during gameplay, even casually sometimes. But...
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what else did you think about this game? I thought it was good. I would say very good, but I mean, like, those hitboxes are strange. And I had some gripes with some levels.
Yeah.
Where they want to do the Ninja Gaiden-esque thing where they just throw like 1,000 enemies at you.
Yeah.
But they all appear from like every direction possible on the screen. Like they come diagonally underneath you, above you.
Yep.
There's like pits that you can fall into.
Yep.
When your character gets hit, it's like Ninja Gaiden where he like staggers back a bunch of pixels.
Yep.
So you fall into pits constantly.
I do like how, like I said, the whip kind of goes behind you a little bit, so you can actually hit enemies behind you somewhat without having to turn.
If you time it like very right,
perfectly, yeah. I like the weapons. They're not quite as good as Batman, like you said.
They're not as good as Batman.
They're not as good, maybe even as Ninja Gaiden.
No.
But you have the whip. You have the grenades, which are great because
grenades are cool.
The whip is short range. The grenades are long range. They cover the screen and they go in a little bit of an arc, and they're powerful.
And they have like a very large hitbox that stays around for a few seconds.
Yeah. Whereas the gun is like medium. Yeah. What's the point? It's medium range. It's slow. It doesn't do a lot of damage. The only thing that really good about it is it has separate ammo, so you can use it and not waste your grenade ammo, I guess.
I used it on like I think I can count 3 enemies in the game.
Yeah,
and I've tried to use it on some bosses, and I'm like, I might as well just use the sword because it's like almost the same distance, and the sword's faster and I think stronger, or at least the same.
I think it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, the whip.
The whip.
My bad.
You keep saying sword,
whip.
but it is a whip.
It looks like a sword. Play this game and tell me that thing is a whip. Like anyone that's listening to this.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like a police baton that a whip extends from. Or something.
It's a goddamn lightsaber.
Yeah, okay? It's a lightsaber whip. I think it's kind of what it's supposed to be. Which again, why is that a standard issue police weapon or detective weapon, whatever? I mean, this is
the future.
This is like cyberpunk future cop kind of thing. But whatever.
it's like RoboCop with lasers.
I will say I found it sometimes easier just to take the hit to kill the enemy or to get temporary invincibility to make a jump without being knocked back versus trying to carefully avoid, because you get enough life ups. Yeah.
I found, I don't know what stage you found the hardest. I found that jungle stage to be like maddening.
I really didn't have any difficulty at all till like the last few levels.
Okay.
And then like early on I was taking hits, I wasn't being very careful, and I was getting through the stages just fine.
Oh yeah, you can absorb like 3 stages worth of hits no problem.
Yeah, and you could expect about a half or 3/4 of the way through the stage you'd get a life up. And so if you took a bunch of hits, you didn't care, you'd get a life up, you'd move on.
Right.
And yeah, only like the last few stages, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that vicinity, it started getting challenging where I'd have to repeat a couple times or practice or I'd get to the boss without a ton of ammo and stuff.
The bosses can be like, the bosses are all pretty quick. They all fire some crap at you.
They're usually nice big sprites, interesting. They're kind of mutated, science gone wrong, kind of stuff. They're mostly people that the character knew that got captured and mutated, that trope.
Actually, like peacekeepers, which we'll talk about in a later podcast. That's quite like that too. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard to find anything else to say about it. Like, what I wanted to compare this to, I mean, we've said Ninja Gaiden 1,000 times. It's like Ninja Gaiden, to me, without the flow of Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
So, like, when you play Ninja Gaiden, especially I'm talking about, like, the original when I say it, I mean, 3's actually got really good flow. 2 also, I mean, it really does. Like, they spent their time to make that game. But, like, Vice Project Doom, it's hard for me to kind of run through and, like, without just taking a bunch of hits. Like, I don't feel like a badass ninja when I play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like you have to start and stop in certain areas, or you just have to be, like, so perfect with the, whip.
Yeah.
That, like, you can, like, you almost have to be a speedrunner in order to play the game fast.
Or you take it slow and avoid hits, and that's not as fun.
It's not as fun.
Yeah.
Whereas Ninja Gaiden, even, like, casually, you play a level a couple times and you figure, like, okay, I jump here. Like, you can get through, here's a power-up, which will allow me to just speed run through this area. I feel like Ninja Gaiden has a much better flow of gameplay.
Right.
And it feels a lot less clunky than the platforming areas of Vice Project Doom.
Like I said, I think they intentionally did it this way because of the whip, but throughout the game, I kept telling myself, I'm just a little too slow. I need to attack faster next time. Faster. And then I could never quite get my brain to do it.
There were certain points where I tried using the turbo, and it still had that same problem.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you can't attack fast enough. You have to attack just at the perfect, like, pixel.
Well, yeah, it's like I said, it's got a little bit of a delay, so you have to attack before you thought you needed to attack.
Yeah, kind of like Castlevania, weird. But it doesn't feel as good as, like, the Castlevania whip.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
You have less time. Like, you have to almost know ahead of time someone's coming, so you can attack. You push the button before you thought you had to.
And like I said, the enemies, like, literally come from the bottom of the screen sometimes and just jump right into you. So, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to play it a few times to get the spawns right, but
I think what I wanted to talk about this game as a multi-genre game, because as we said, it had the driving stage. I think it's actually 2 driving stages.
It's 2 driving stages, and I think 2 gun stages.
2 gun stages, which were the least memorable, I think.
Yeah.
They weren't the most fun gun stage ever. They just, it's just kind of something different, but they don't overstay their welcome either.
If you could use the light gun for the gun stages, I think it would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, you can't, which is weird.
Yeah.
You get to use either your bullets or your grenades. Which is interesting, I believe.
You can.
It's the same ammo, I believe.
I'm trying to think. What's the other... there's another game like that in NES. Untouchables is kind of that way, where it's like a straight shooter game, but you can't use the light gun. So, like, I don't like using controller for shooter stages.
Well, I don't have a CRT set up, so I appreciate that it at least has the option. I wish it would give you both options.
Yeah. Yeah, both the driving stages, like I said, the first one is literally the first level. It's over before you know it. I mean, like, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
The second one is, I don't know, like, I just didn't get anything really out of the driving stages.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think the variety of stages really improved the game, but it didn't really hurt it either. So it kind of was just a little extra sideshow to go through to keep you from getting too worn down by the rest of the game style, maybe.
Yeah. Or it was just filler.
Or it was just filler. Yeah.
One or the other. I can't really tell.
But to me, this is still actually a pretty strong game. I hesitate to definitely, but I think I would give it a 4 out of 5.
I was leaning at 4 as well. Yeah. It's hard for me to go any higher because it has. Not. If it just had a better flow, like more of a Ninja Gaiden like feel to it, easy 4.5 probably for me.
Yeah, like, I dock it half a point because the graphics and sound aren't perfect, but they're close.
I think the graphics are pretty good.
They're good, but like it's not like I'm just raring to go and the music is just constantly driving. It's close. The
music isn't there for me either.
Yeah, it's not quite there. It's close. And the gameplay, like I said, it's close but not quite there. So a half point for each, but really good still.
Yeah, I would definitely pick it up, like if you could find it, or at least try to play it. As far as platformers go, it's probably in the upper 2/3 on the system.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somewhere up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the game goes for, I think last time I checked it was like $70, so it might be a little pricey to grab at the moment, but it's not rare. I've seen it many times. I would say it's, more in the uncommon to very uncommon side, but like, I don't know. Pick it up. I don't like.
It's worth a play.
Yeah, I don't think anyone will not like it. But if you're looking for Ninja Gaiden, just play Ninja Gaiden or Castlevania or one of those kind of platformers. But good, definitely grab it. Which one do you want to talk about next, Dave?
Well, okay, so that was an example of a multi-genre game that did a pretty good job. Let's talk about one that did less of a good job, and that would be The Adventures of Bayou Billy.
Bayou Billy.
Bayou Billy. Which, by the way, that Bayou Billy, that vocal sample, that's something they added for the U.S. release.
Did they have anything in the Japanese one?
No, none of those vocal samples are in there. They added them. And the graphics aren't quite as good either. Like, they made a lot of little improvements for the U.S. version, but then they ruined parts of the game.
We'll get massive disimprovements.
It's interesting. It's wild. So this was developed and published by Konami. So there's no one else to blame. It's all Konami.
It didn't have like a ghost developer. It was
Nope, all Konami as far as I can tell.
Whoops.
And it's an action brawler and a rail shooter and a driving game all in one.
Yeah, it's one part. I'm trying to think. What's a light gun game kind of like this?
It's kind of like Punisher, I think. Maybe
the Punisher doesn't use light game though. I don't think.
I'm talking about the controller based version of it. But I think it's kind of.
Oh yeah, you played that, didn't you? I played the light gun, which was awesome.
Yeah,
but we'll get to that. But maybe Freedom Force. I haven't really played that, but
yeah. But it's actually, we'll get to that, but it actually did that part fairly well, surprisingly. That's like a high point of the game.
Yeah, I can say like I actually enjoyed parts of Bayou Billy.
I think I might actually enjoy the game better if it was all those stages.
Oh yeah,
that would be fun.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a game that's historically just been shat on as being like one of the worst on the console.
It's notorious,
and like kind of for good reason. Like I'm not even gonna lie, like it's bad, but there are parts of it that are like. Well, diamond in the rough.
It's weird because at the time I vaguely recall this game had advertisements, it had commercials, it had a big push in Nintendo Power. It was a popular game, but again, this is pre-internet, so kids didn't really know how bad it was in certain ways. So everyone just knew it for what it portrayed itself to be, which was this is a cool Crocodile Dundee game, basically.
Oh yeah, Crocodile Dundee was hot back then.
Yeah,
right?
and so everyone bought it. I think it sold pretty well as far as I understand.
It's very common. I can put it that way. Like, you buy an NES lot, chances are you have a Bayou Billy somewhere in there.
Yeah, a lot of people had it. A lot of people liked it, or professed to like it.
Did you happen to see like the Nintendo Power ratings for this game at all?
I didn't.
I didn't look it up.
I had the magazine for it back in the day. I don't recall. I think it did the usual fluff piece, oh, this is an amazing game, buy it,
Well, it's like when they reviewed like Superman 64, they weren't harsh on it, they just didn't say a whole lot about it.
Yeah. Even
though they advertised the hell out of it leading up to it, but
I feel like most of these games, they just completely downplay the difficulty things, and they're just like, oh, just do this, and here's how you get through this, and no big deal. I don't think it covered the driving stages at all. It was just like hand wave.
So Bayou Billy was like, honestly, I've played it in the past. Usually I got stuck in the first level, threw the game in the garbage, and said, I ain't doing this anymore.
Yeah, I remember doing pretty well in the fighting stages when I was a kid. It took practice, because it's this weird jousting fighting. It's your primary goal. You have like a health bar with 7 boxes.
Kind of like it reminds me of Double Dragon-ish.
Yeah, this tries to be a Double Dragon game, but Double Dragon, you can get up in people's faces and beat them up. This game, you cannot do that. You will die.
Yeah.
You have to joust. You have to hit and run. You have to hit enemies without them hitting you back.
Or just rely on the jump kick, which I did a lot.
I abused the jump kick, but even the jump kick, you have to time it right, or they'll hit you as you leave.
Yeah.
But some enemies, they have a kind of a dumb AI where you can get behind them and just constantly be kicking them in the back of the head as they go, and avoid taking hits. And that's what you're supposed to do.
A lot of the enemies, they do drop power-ups, which is nice, and they drop them fairly often.
Yeah.
But like you'll be finding yourself like even a quarter way through a lot of the areas of the first stage, just like praying that they drop a life power-up.
Yeah, it's
life refill.
You have to get through, like 6 enemies between life power-ups, and you have that 1 health bar to get through to avoid losing a life.
And there's no way to really protect it. You just have to pray that like they just don't counterattack sometimes.
Yeah. Or you have to get good at the dodging and weaving and the hit and run.
It's tough.
It's tough. It's a weird play style to get used to. And they have weapons. They have knives and sticks and whips and bulletproof vests that also somewhat protect. And guns. And that's the thing. It's strategic. You have to use the weapons. Like when you get the stick, the main purpose of the stick is it increases your reach.
Right.
So you can hit an enemy and then back off and hit them and back off and not take hits back unless they also have a stick.
Right.
But it's weird because some of them wear bulletproof vests, which on them protect them from knives and sticks and bullets. So you have to jump kick them twice until it knocks off the bulletproof vest, grab it, and then you can beat them up with the stick or the bullet or whatever. And so it's a strategy game of trying to, peel off their defenses and then go after them with their weapons and stuff.
And this all sounds very interesting, but like in reality, when you're playing it, it's like, it's so goddamn hard. You're just like, eh.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I pretty consistently got through the first 2 levels. And then or I should say the first 3 levels, because the second level is a shooting game, which is great.
Yes.
Well, we can go over that a little more. But then the 4th and 5th levels are the driving levels, and that's the wake up call. That's where I would rent this game when I was a kid, and I would rarely, if ever, get through those levels, especially the second one.
Yeah, the second one's where I rage quit yesterday.
Yeah,
because I actually got there without losing a single life or continue.
Yeah,
and then I'm like, oh boy, because you hit anything. You hit you hit a literal rock in the road and you lose a life.
So this is a good thing maybe to talk about, that this game has a Japanese version called Mad City, which is ridiculously different. Like there's minor differences, like Annabelle in the US version has the Daisy Dukes and
she's American type.
Yeah, whereas in the Japanese version she's got like a full dress on. So there's a few little minor differences, but the big difference is the driving stage is hugely different. For example, the Japanese version, the road is wider.
Oh my god.
You can actually take hits. Apparently, if you take enough hits, like the top of your car rips off, like the sprite changes.
That's awesome.
There's less enemies and you have more options for dealing with them. It's easier to just drive around them and stuff. It's more of a chase game. You're like trying to chase the Jeep that they're taking Annabelle away in, but you can't shoot it or you lose the game.
Well, I'll say this about the American version is the road is very narrow.
It's super narrow.
There are tons of cars on it that you have to destroy, otherwise if you hit them, you die.
If you hit the rocks in the road that you can barely see.
Literal rocks that just show up out of like seemingly nowhere.
You have a split second. It's like turbo tunnel almost.
Sometimes there's enemies that come up from behind you that you literally can't see until they're there.
If you slow down, yes. You got to be going at top speed or that happens.
Going top speed is like impossible because the roads are so windy. And on the sides of all the roads, there's these giant pillars everywhere.
Yeah, so you have to see what way the road's going and immediately turn ahead of time.
Yeah.
And if you don't turn enough, you have to stop and then edge over so you don't hit the pillar and then go top speed again.
While you're shooting at the cars in front of you, while you're throwing grenades at helicopters that are constantly appearing above you, throwing grenades back at you.
And if you throw a grenade, and while the grenade's in the road, or in the air, you can't shoot.
Right.
So there are times when you should not throw the grenade because you need to shoot the car.
Yeah.
And you can dodge the bombs that the aircraft drop.
Like I actually watched a speed run of this like after I played it, and I'm like, dude, okay, like there's got to be some trick to it. One, speedrunners, it's very hard to clear the first stage.
Yeah.
Just like universally, like they almost die.
Yeah.
The driving stages are still as hard as it seems.
Yep.
Like it's not an easy game, I don't think, for anyone.
No.
Other than like some of the later stages, you can despawn enemies, I guess. So that's nice. But
you can skip like some of the gators. The gators are kind of a neat thing. So the gators have this crazy huge sprite and they're scary. Like with the first time you come up to them, you're just walking up to the water and all of a sudden, rah, rah,
they pop out and they bite.
Yeah, and they do a lot of damage and they're hard to hit. And if you get in the water, forget it. You're dead. You have to lure them on land partially. Like they don't come out on land, but they'll attack you. You can be out of their attack range and just kick them until they die.
So what I found is the way to beat them. So like some of the gators are skippable, like Dave said. Some of them you have to fight.
Yeah.
So you get what I found works for me is I actually got in the water.
Yeah.
I got like maybe like a character's width versus worth of sprites away from them.
Yeah.
And then you just spam the punch button.
Sure.
And if you punch them while they pop out, they actually don't hit you.
Sure.
So you get like I don't know what to call it. It's sort of like an invincibility frame, but you don't get hit.
Right.
And then, like, on top of that, the gators actually drop a lot of items.
Yes.
Which is weird, because they drop sticks, like 2x4s.
And meat. Yeah.
And meat. Lots of meat.
Yeah.
The only problem is, they all drop in the swamp, and for some reason, the meat in particular is very hard to find sometimes.
Yeah, you have to, like, that's why I would usually fight them on the shore and, like, pull them back to where I can hit them safely, and then I know the meat's straight in front of me.
Yeah. So I fought them all in the water. I didn't have problems with it. They fought them on land. found a good solution. For some reason, when I was on land, like I found it just easier to get hit. I don't know.
You have to they like strike like 3 times in a row.
Yes.
And each time goes a little deeper in. So sometimes I'll hit them in the first 2 strikes and then back off on the third.
Right.
It's a weird thing. And then sometimes they get bugged and they just get stuck in place and just dink around. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, there are some bosses like the boss of the first level is not that bad. Like, it's
well, I mean, it's
weird.
The guy that flips you over his head.
Yeah, suplexes you.
Yeah, so this is where you either are good at hit and run or you're not.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, as you get close to him, he'll flip you over his head and beat the snot out of you. And he's another one of those guys that has that bulletproof vest on.
Yeah.
So if you happen to have a weapon, you can use it, but you first have to jump kick him twice to knock it off, grab it, and not get flipped and lose your weapon, and then you can start beating him up.
Like the stick is very good against him.
Yeah.
The strategy that I found works is just I think you get off 2 jump kicks and 1 regular kick, and then you can dodge his grapple move. Where it's like you just, I don't know, you eventually beat him down. It wasn't that bad for me.
The thing that worked the best for me, which is weird, there's this weird, you can get in really, really close and punch him, and you can kind of interrupt his throwing thing as long as you have to be super close and you have to kind of move around to be in the right position, and you can just keep beating the snot out of him with a punch.
That sounds easier.
It is easier, but it takes some practice.
But yeah, I mean, like, it's funny you talk so much about the first stage of this game, but I think that's where, like, most of the people probably just get stuck.
Oh, yeah.
And they just say, like, this game is terrible.
It's way harder than a Double Dragon, especially for the first stage.
Oh, yeah. The first stage is almost like the last stage of Double Dragon.
And that's the thing. Again, the Japanese version, night and day.
Yeah.
It's actually fun.
It's one of those weird instances where they just made the game harder in the American version.
The American version, the enemies take more hits, they're faster, and they do more damage.
Fun.
So the Japanese version's almost too easy in these early stages, but they're the early stages. They should be easy.
Yeah, the game should ramp up as they go along. Like, you can't throw the hardest level as the first level.
Yeah.
Like, most people are just going to play it and be like, yeah, this sucks. Like, why would I continue?
Yeah.
Like, if it's only going to get harder from here, I can't imagine what it's going to look like, you know?
Yeah, whereas then the second stage, you have this rail shooter stage, which is awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's awesome with the controller, I think, or I haven't played the Zapper game since I was a kid. But...
I played it with the light gun yesterday, and I'm like, I wish I could play an entire game of just this.
I would absolutely play a Bayou Billy Zapper only game.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's totally responsive.
Yeah.
It actually kind of reminds me of playing like a legitimate like arcade like Area 51-ish. I mean, obviously it's on NES, so like it looks jankier, but like it's kind of like an Area 51 game where you shoot enemies.
Yeah.
Some of them drop items like health power-ups or whatever. You shoot those to get them.
Yeah,
feels great.
You get health power-ups, you get ammo, you get stars that kill everything on the screen, you get bulletproof vest that makes you invincible for a while. I think there's a time boost if you're running out of time. Yeah,
the only thing the Zapper doesn't have is like a second button to do like bomb attacks or something.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, you don't really need them.
It feels great.
Yeah, it feels great. It has bosses.
Yeah.
Like the first one is a helicopter
boss
which
great.
It's hard. It's deceptively hard if your aim isn't good. You can easily lose, even if you're doing great the whole rest of the stage. You can easily lose to the helicopter.
I don't know what I was taking damage from the helicopter boss, but I beat it without dying. So
yeah, I mean, he shoots you kind of sometimes if you're not shooting him, and then the guys he drops shoots you. So you have to shoot him consistently, and you have to keep down the little guys.
Yeah, but it feels great.
And the second one is at near the end of the game, and you're fighting like a big Arnold guy with a machine gun and a little like flippy guy that throws daggers, and you have to like shoot the daggers that he throws at you and both of them, and you have to decide you can kill either one first. So you can either shoot the big slow guy who doesn't move out of the way and just kill him quick while taking damage from the other guy and then concentrating him, or you can try and kill the little guy first who's a pain in the butt and just accept you're going to take some hits from the shooty guy. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I didn't quite make it there. I got stuck. So, like, after the shooter level, there's just another, like, swampy level that's...
shorter.
Yeah, it's fine. Like, it's not that hard to get past.
Yeah.
Then it gets on to the driving stages that we mentioned earlier, which are kind of, like...
They're
kind of like Rad Racer, but worse.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say them, really, but...
Yeah, they're not... You could shoot cars, and you have to shoot cars, because you can't really dodge them hard. Well, you can a little, but it's hard.
The first one I didn't find that hard. I mean, like, what sucks here is that, like I said, it's one hit, you die.
Yep.
So, like, in the other stages, like, you want to hold on to lives as hard as possible. It kind of reminds me of the Turbo Tunnel of Battletoads.
It is. Yeah.
Where it's like during the normal beat-em-up stages, you're trying to sort of save HP and everything. Yeah. Then once you get to these stages, you lose a life just on a dime. Like, it sucks.
Because, you have, I think it's 5 continues and 3 lives. So you can burn through those 15 lives in no time. And be done.
Yeah, because like the three lives don't do you a whole lot of good sometimes. Like especially in the driving stages, like on the second stage, it's so easy to die, and that stage is like 2.5 minutes long or like something pretty obscene.
Yeah, because like the the Japanese version, you have I think you have what is it? No, I think it's the same 3 lives and 5 continues, but it fits for that difficulty.
Yeah.
For the US version, as hard as they made it, they should have given you unlimited continues, and then it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Or a stage select or passwords or whatever.
Something. I mean, like, at least it does have Game Genie codes.
Yeah.
I was going to go back and do it, but I don't know.
I mean, as hard as it is, it's fine if you can keep practicing till you get it.
Yeah.
But the problem is you get through these fighting stages and then you have to practice. And there is actually a practice mode, which, if you didn't know, if you go through the practice modes and beat everything, you actually get a bonus health and stuff for the actual game.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
You're on the US version?
Yeah. Well, so what happens is some of the bonuses you get in the practice mode get you up to the basic level of what you have in the Japanese version by default. Okay. And also, you almost have to do it because otherwise you get to the driving stage and you have no idea how to do it and you start losing lives.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be good at the driving stage ahead of time so that when you get to it with your precious lives, you're not wasting them.
And the second driving stage is just brutal.
Yeah, it's longer, I think. And there's oil. They add oil.
Yeah.
So in the earlier ones, there's water puddles that like slow you down and mess with you. But the oil not only slows you down and stuff, but you start doing this when you try and turn, it doesn't let you turn as well for a while afterwards. It takes a while to wear off.
Yeah. And there's pillars, like I said, everywhere. So like you just burn through 15 lives like nothing on the second stage.
Yeah.
And then if you die there, like if you use your 3 lives and you have to continue, you start at the beginning. So like it doesn't get easier. It's not like they give you a nice checkpoint and like eventually you'll make it through. Like it sucks.
Yeah, I don't think I ever legitimately got through both driving stages when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'd seen Nintendo Power these cool scenes with, the whip and with, this cool New Orleans style, architecture, all this stuff. Never got to see them.
Oh.
And it kind of ruined the game for me a little, honestly. But again, the Japanese version, you can get through those just fine, and then you can actually play those stages, which are awesome. Those are the best part of the game other than the shooting stages. Because you have enemies that drop whips, and the whip has super long range, and it's fun.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, man, I wish I could actually get to this level.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looks like a competent beat 'em up once you get there.
Yeah, well, like I said, some of the things that were in the earlier parts of the game, the strategy and all that, are ramped up. Where you'll have like 3 of these big Arnold-looking guys with the bulletproof vests, and you have to knock the bulletproof vest off each one and take their weapon and beat them up with it, and it's neat. And you have a variety of bosses, some of which are a little harder than others. Like the one guy has a gun, and you can't knock the gun out of his hand. You just have to avoid staying far enough away where he can shoot you. But he's actually pretty weak up front or up close, but he also flips around and tries to stay away from you. And then there's another guy that has that calls dogs at you, and he jumps around and tries to stay away from you, and he constantly spawns dogs. So if you keep beating up the dogs, he keeps calling more. So you have to target him and ignore the dogs, and then once you beat him up, then you can finish off the dogs. But he's like just trying to stay away from you the whole time, so it's kind of annoying, but it's fun. It's neat.
Yeah, I mean that's as far as I got in Bayou Billy. Yeah. Like, just a couple more things to say about it. The music is actually decent. It is a Konami game.
Yeah. It's a distinctive soundtrack.
Yeah, you don't get their best, but like it's not bad at all.
It's neat. It's different. It's Bayou Billy. Yeah. It's this kind of Southern Creole, Cajun, whatever kind of style thing.
Normally in these mediocre games, like the music is just like the last thing they even thought of, and it just blows. But like, I don't know. It was okay. Like, how would you rate Bayou Billy? I'm assuming you don't want to say too much else about it.
So I actually rate the US version a 3 out of 5 and the Japanese version a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay.
The Japanese version is that much better. I would almost go... the only reason I won't go with a 4 for the Japanese version is because the hit and run style fighting is still kind of janky.
Yeah.
I really wish you could actually just, get up in people's faces a little more and You know, it was a little more forgiving with like that, but
did Konami make too many beat 'em ups on NES or no?
Not that comes to mind. You know, most of the good beat 'em ups, you know, the Double Dragon stuff was Technos, and Mighty Final Fight was Capcom, and I mean, there weren't really that many.
Yeah, there were. Hey, who made like River City Ransom?
That was Technos as well, I think. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So this, you know, for a company that didn't make a lot, you know, Konami made a lot of good games. They didn't make a lot of brawlers, really.
No.
So a pretty decent first effort. They just kind of hamstrung it with the crazy difficulty, which again, this is one of those notorious games where Japan was worried about people renting games, beating them, and then never buying them. So they made the US version harder than the Japanese version.
Yeah, thinking that would make people like them, but
yes.
I mean, in the end, it just makes them more frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bayou Billy's a hard one for me. Obviously, I haven't beaten the whole thing. I haven't played the Japanese version, so I can't give a rating on that. I think from what I have played, though, I have to give it a 2.5. The main saving grace being the shooting stage.
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Even if you just want to, like, boot up Bayou Billy, which is like a $4 game, by the way.
Yeah.
Boot up Bayou Billy, throw in a game Genie, do a level select code for just the shooter stages, and just play it with a light gun, and it's like, oh man, this is like really good stuff.
Yeah, and I think the practice shooting stage, I think it has everything but the boss off the top of my head.
The boss is fun though. Like,
yeah, it is fun.
You want to play it with the boss.
You want to play with the boss, but yeah, it's or just play Mad City, play the Japanese version.
Sure,
it's
just
better.
Be done with it.
It's straight up better. The graphics are a little worse in places. They're a little rougher, and they changed up like some of the stages with the crocodiles and stuff a little, but it's still better.
Yeah. What I will say though, if you do want a fun time, read the manual for Bayou Billy, because if you look in the back, it gives a name for every single enemy that's in the game, and they're all like puns on other people. Yeah. There's a guy in there called Schwartz and Egger, for example. I mean, it's pure 80s brilliance. Read the manual.
It's Christopher B.
Yeah, you'll have a great time. It's wonderful.
It's the Castlevania shtick.
All right, that is enough of Bayou Billy. We've probably talked about that game more than any other person on the planet has at this point. But what is the next game you want to talk about?
So the next game is the other bad experiment of multi-platform games on the NES, and that would be Battletoads.
Yeah, this is a love-or-hate experience with this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is an action brawler. It's a platformer, it's a driver, a chase game, whatever. It's whatever it wants to be. It constantly is throwing new gameplay experiences at you.
I think every level is a different genre, almost.
Kinda, yeah. It shifts like, some of them are more brawly, some of them are more platformy. You know, some you barely fight an enemy, but you're constantly trying to avoid falling in pits.
Yeah.
You know, some are just boss stages. And it's got that rare charm. You know, the biggest thing of this game is the soundtrack.
The soundtrack is wonderful.
The soundtrack is amazing. The presentation is great. The sprites are huge and interesting. And
it's a good looking game.
Yeah,
it looks wonderful.
Yeah,
sounds great.
It's unique. It's challenging. Every stage is new and different. It's not repeating enemies like constantly.
Yeah, the controls are pretty adequate for most of the game.
Yeah,
sometimes they're a little, but
yeah. So I mean, this was developed by Rare, published by Trade West. It was deliberately made to cash in on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the time.
Right. So what was Battletoads? Was it anything before this?
Nope.
Like an arcade game, or was that?
Well, no, the arcade game came later.
Okay.
So I don't know if you remember, there was kind of a little cartoony thing they did in Nintendo Power that was made to promote the game, but I think the game came first, is my understanding. I've seen documentaries on Rare before, and they literally were just throwing things at the wall, I think, to see what stuck, and they wanted to make their Ninja Turtles cash in.
Yeah,
and they did a pretty good job. I mean, it's one of the better Ninja Turtle knockoffs, you could say.
Well, that's why I can't remember, because like as a kid I loved the Battletoads, and I can't remember why the hell I loved the Battletoads.
I think it was the Nintendo. It had a great thing in Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
And the game
posters.
is the level 1 in the game is like a masterclass for an NES game.
It really is wonderful. If the whole game
amazing.
was like level 1, it would be like an all-time beat 'em up in the system.
And level 2 actually is really fun too. It's harder, but it's fun and it's different. It's a completely different style of game. I mean, if they had just kept kept, honestly, so we'll get to it, but if they had kept it at that level, the whole game would probably be thought of as a classic. It's just you hit the brick wall of the turbo tunnel.
Yeah, so if you play like what I always like to do is like you play the first level of Battletoads and then you just ignore the rest of the game and you boot up Battletoads versus Double Dragon on the same console. You just play it straight through. Like that Battletoads versus Double Dragon is like they took the first level and they just said that was fun.
Yeah,
we'll just make a whole game out of that. And then they made that game. But yeah, the original Battletoads, like I remember as a kid, this is one I probably rented a few times. Yeah, honestly. Yeah, and like even though it's almost impossibly hard, especially for a kid, like I always had good.
It was always fun.
Yeah, I always had good memories of it.
You would have fun, all right, up until the point where you'd lose all your lives in the turbo tunnel and turn it off and come back later and be like, oh, I've got to do better next time. Yeah,
and maybe you'd make it past the turbo tunnel, because like I remember I used to read like Nintendo Power and they had like where the warps were. Yeah. So like even as a kid, as long as you knew where the warps were, you could maybe make your way past it. Yeah. Yeah. Other like getting past the stages, past the turbo tunnel, now that's a whole different beast. But
well, and that's the thing. This is another one of those games where they made it harder in the US because of rentals. And in the Japanese version, so just playing, not having played it in forever. Yeah. I sat down and played Battletoads again, and I lost all my lives in the turbo tunnel, as per usual. I played the Japanese version. I got all the way to level 6, I believe, the snake level, without trying hard at all. I'm sure I could get farther if I, practice and got up to speed again, because I did waste a few lives still in the turbo tunnel. Right. But they made it. It's reasonable. It's still challenging, but it's reasonable. The US version went so far overboard. And again, if you want to go overboard, fine. Unlimited continues. Yes. One or the other.
Yeah, unlimited continues to make this game like as I think it would change it from like an average game to like a buy it. Yes. Like you're gonna love this game type of thing. For sure.
Absolutely. The game gives you 3 lives and 3 continues. The Japanese version gives you 5 lives and 5 continues.
Now, you can earn lives fairly easily.
You can.
Especially in the second level of the game, you can just grind out endless amount of lives if you want. I mean, I think you can only have 5 at a time, but...
Yeah, you can keep hitting the bird, you're juggling the birds, and once your score gets high enough, it's like, it's like Mario. Above a certain thing, you just keep getting 1-ups.
And you find 1-ups on maps in various stages as well. So, like, yeah, it's not... In that aspect, it's not hard. I mean, and you don't really, you don't ever lose lives getting beat up.
Almost never.
You lose lives just falling off things or falling into crevices or whatever.
Although it is interesting. Like there are, I was playing through when I was being a little lazy and I accidentally got knocked off the dragon and the dragon went and attacked me, and they actually attack you and pick you up and drop you off cliffs. Yeah. Like I've never had that happen because I always beat them up easily. Like the enemies aren't hard to get to and beat up, but if you're not careful, it's interesting what they'll like flatten you and then you waddle around.
Yeah, that was always great.
There's so many cool animations when you get beat up.
Yeah, and there's like you get like weapons and stuff. Yeah, you can ride dragons, use them as weapons.
Yeah, you beat up walkers and grab the leg and use that as a weapon.
Yeah. You can do running attacks, you can do jumping attacks, you can do all sorts of stuff. Like as a beat 'em up game, it feels wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just fun. It just gives you all kinds of neat things to try. Yeah. You shoot your tongue out to eat flies to get your health back.
Which is like the controls for that are kind of janky.
They're a little janky. There's 1-ups. You have to position yourself just right based on where the shadow is to get the 1-up.
Yeah, they can be tough.
There's little Space Invader guys that literally attack your health bar.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, they break the 4th wall and eat your try and grab your health bar things off the screen, but you can beat them up and then get them back. Yeah. And then they float back up to your health bar. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all sorts of cool Easter eggs, but yeah, so this level goes. It's first beat 'em up. The second, I don't know, it's sort of like a pseudo platformy thing. I don't really know what to call it.
It's a vertically scrolling beat 'em up, I guess.
Sorta, yeah.
Yeah, like a rail scrolling beat 'em up.
Oh, what I will say is the second stage is almost a nightmare 2-player.
Yes, it is.
You're basically hanging on ropes trying to go down like a giant tunnel. Yeah, but you can accidentally cut your opponent or cut your partner's rope.
Yeah, or you can, if you float against the side of the thing, you turn into a wrecking ball, and you can easily hit everything in the way.
As far as I know, there's not a way to turn off partner hits, right?
No, I don't think there is. I think in that stage, you pretty much one person has to stay high and one person has to stay low. Right. Otherwise, you hit each other.
Yeah, it's doable in that aspect. I think there is some part in the later levels That one level where the entire stage is moving and you're on like a spinner.
Level 11 is you straight up cannot win in the US version.
Yeah, I think the US version it's like almost blocked for 2-player. Like you can't actually get past it.
It's bugged. Yeah, they fixed it in the Japanese and later versions.
Which is strange because you'd think that like somebody would playtest this 2-player and realize like, okay, it's actually impossible. Maybe we should like do something about it. But
I kind of feel like early Rare, they just kind of did by the seat of their pants. A lot of the stuff was great, and a lot of it wasn't maybe tested as much as it could have been.
Yeah,
because the Japanese version again, that's what they turned into the Sega Genesis version, which is a similar game just improved. So it's like the bug tested version of the game. Right. The NES is like the beta version,
which surprisingly very little testing on, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, after the second stage, it turns into the Turbo Tunnel, which you should all know is it's one of the hardest NES levels like in existence. So you look at like hard NES levels. I'm trying to think of a few off the top of my head. Everyone says, and this is bullshit, but everyone says like the sewer level of or the dam level. I'm sorry,
the dam
Teenage
level.
Mutant Ninja Turtles is like super hard.
It's not.
It's easy. Like you just need to like get past it one time, and it's like the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
There are some other like Ninja Gaiden 6-2, I think might be, or is it 6-2 that has the floaty guys that shoot stars at you?
I forget.
And it has like the respawning guy in the platform shooting crosses at you with the bird at the end that always kills you somehow.
Yeah.
It's one of those stages. Well, the Turbo Tunnel is, I don't know what to call it. It's kind of like a racing / memory stage.
Yeah, it's a memory stage. You have to memorize when these walls are coming at you, so you can dodge up or down or jump. And you have to land on ramps to make jumps, and sometimes you have to just jump from platform to platform, and those are the hardest parts. When there's no ramp, you just have to perfectly jump. Like you have to be at the right position, left and right on the screen, and you have to jump at the right time, land at the right time. Sometimes you have to land, immediately jump, and then jump again. Otherwise, you hit a platform.
And if you land on some of these islands or platforms like in too late of a spot, you're
not gonna make it.
You're just screwed.
And there's a stage later on that just goes at top speed, and you can't slow down. And
there's so everyone talks about the first Turbo Tunnel, but there's actually a second Turbo Tunnel that's like, people actually say it's harder.
Yes.
I've never actually gotten to it. I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a part where at the end of it where it's going so fast you can't even go all the way down, or you can't possibly go enough up. So you have to go just far enough down to avoid, but not like a pixel more. Otherwise, you won't be able to pull back up. So it's like it's just this really fine level of perfection it's at top speed. It's ugh, it sucks.
Yeah. So the Turbo Tunnel it's the dead end for probably 90% of players that play Battletoads.
Yeah, and you don't have, like I said, you don't have that many continues and that many lives, so you can easily burn through all of them right there.
And most people do. But there's one saving grace that there is a warp in the first stage that basically puts you right at the Turbo Tunnel. So like if you want to grind out the Turbo Tunnel, you just use the warps.
And there's a warp in the Turbo Tunnel that takes you, I forget where it takes you.
I forgot too, but that's a hard warp to find. It's basically you have to like ram yourself into a door somewhere like later in the Turbo Tunnel.
It's that stage where it's going super fast. And you have to, it's right in front of one of the walls. So you have to know it's there. You don't really have time to see it in a movie. You have to know it's there, and you have to deliberately run into one of the walls.
Yeah, you have to do a count and know which one it's going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never made it past the Turbo Tunnel. I have tried many times.
I legitimately did once or twice when I was a kid. And then the next stage is the ice level, which is tough, and it's like I said, it's kind of a platformy thing more than a beat 'em up.
It is,
and it's fun. But after the Turbo Tunnel, like I had never had enough lives to practice it and get good at it.
Right.
As a kid. Again, the Japanese version, I can get through that stage, and then stage 5 is another racy kind of level, but you're on a surfboard and you can't jump, and so you're just dodging.
How bad is that one?
That one's actually fun. It's not hard. Well, I mean, it's hard. Again, it's harder in the U.S.
Yeah.
There's more logs. There's spaced closer together. Blah blah blah. But it's still better than the Turbo Tunnel. And then there's a boss. You know, there's one of the big rat guys who's fun to beat. You can beat him up with one of the walker legs, which is fun. But again, you have to stay away from him because if he lands on you, he flattens you, and then you waddle around.
Yeah.
But it's neat. And then the 6th level is the snake level, which is one of the best levels in the game. It's awesome. It's tough, but it's cool.
It's a pure memory level.
Yes, but it's so neat. It's such a wild, crazy level.
It looks sweet.
Yeah.
But it's like I kind of hate that stuff where like it throws you so late in the game. Like with if you had endless continues to just grind it out, I'd find it a lot more entertaining. I think, but
yeah, and I like how basically how it works is you're in this cavern and there's holes in the wall and these giant mechanical snakes that look like bullet trains or whatever come out of one hole and go into another, and so you jump on them and ride them to the other hole, and then you wait till it disappears and another one comes out and you jump onto that and you work your way up to exit.
Yeah, but usually as the one you're riding disappears, like you have to just YOLO jump at some point.
Split second jump to the next one. It's kind of like Mega Man, the blocks stages. It's kind of like that at times where you have to have a perfect time jump, otherwise you fall. The first part, there's no risk. If you fail, you just have to repeat it. Yeah. The second part, if you fail, you fall on spikes and die.
Right.
So that's where it gets hard. You have to, you have some practice, which was nice of them, and then you have to get perfect.
Yeah.
Which it's a fun level. Again, yeah, if you had unlimited continues, I would love it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes. And then those snakes also appear in another Konami game, by the way, Bucky O'Hare.
Ah. I thought they were going after Snake, Rattle, and Roll.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Who made Snake, Rattle?
I thought that was Rare as well, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's also Rare.
Huh. Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Yeah, that's funny because Konami. I don't know which one was made faster or beforehand, but yeah, Battletoads or Bucky O'Hare. But basically, the exact same snakes appear in Bucky O'Hare.
Well, yeah, I'd have to see. I mean, Rare made a lot of games that other companies published. I wasn't sure if
it beats me, but I don't know.
I wasn't. I thought Bucky O'Hare was Konami, but I wasn't sure who developed it.
Yeah. So what's after the snake level? Is that there's a water level somewhere in there? I know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't document it heavily beyond that part, but yeah, there's a water level where
that's brutal.
You're in a sewer basically, and you're swimming around avoiding these little ducks that try and eat you, and spikes, of course, and
boulders and stuff that just.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Ninja Turtle dam level in places.
Oh, it's way harder.
But harder, yes. And again, it's not really a beat 'em up stage. It's an avoid getting killed stage. It's a platformy, don't get killed stage. There's that. There's the stage where you're riding, I think level 11, where you're riding on this weird little unicycle thing, trying to escape from this giant ball that you then have to beat up.
And that one, you kind of have to know the pattern of the stage that's happening, because basically the only controls you get is just the D-pad at that point, and you have to kind of rotoscope yourself around a level.
Yes.
And it's very fast. There's a guy chasing. You can't really screw up, and it doesn't really give you a lot of leeway as to which direction you're going to have to go. So
yeah.
Again, there's a lot of memory stages in Battletoads where you almost have to just grind the game out for a week in order to actually be able to beat it. Just throwing lives at it, maybe just using warps to get to those later levels that are just very hard.
Yeah, it's a shame because, like I said, some of those levels, like the snake level, that's a great level, but how many people have seen it?
Right. I know there's the rat race level.
Yeah, so I just looked it up.
Tough.
Yeah, the level 7 is the fire zone. I don't have any memory of that. Volkmeyer's Inferno. I have no memory of that.
I can't remember what that is either.
Next level is the elevator shaft. I do remember that one. That one looked pretty cool. You're going upward, and there's platforms where you have to jump through the hole in the platform up to the next stage, but there's electrical things you have to avoid getting zapped by.
Oh, right,
and so that one's kind of neat. And then the next one is the ducks, the duct work of the Gargantua, their big enemy ship.
Yeah.
That's the water level. And then the Gargantua itself, and I've again no memory of that one. I'm sure I saw it in Nintendo Power, but I never really played it.
Yeah.
And then finally the Dark Queen's Tower, which is really neat because you're going up the side of this tower that if you go left and right, the tower rotates.
It looks cool.
It looks badass.
It has one of those problems though. The more you go up, the screen, you can never fall and just repeat those parts. It eventually gets so far up that I think if you fall, you die.
Yeah.
So it can be, especially for a last level of the game with the boss at the end.
Yes.
It can be pretty brutal.
Yeah, and the Dark Queen I think is notoriously hard also.
Yeah.
And I skipped
a lot of hits.
I skipped a couple things. Yeah, you said the rat race, that neat stage where you're racing the one rat guy and you have to try and beat him to the end of the stage.
And then you have to kick his ass
and you
afterwards.
have to beat him. Yeah. Yeah, and there's just a lot of it's 13 stages all told, which is crazy.
It's 13 stages, but 11 of them are very, very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it just crazy to me that they didn't give it unlimited continue. I can understand making it harder.
Sure.
Fine. Give me unlimited continue so I can keep banging my head against the one level until I get, or a stage select, or a password, something.
Something would have been nice. Like, I don't know.
As it is, again, I think I would give it a 3 out of 5 on the US side, maybe a 3.5 on the Japanese side.
Yeah, I was thinking around a 3 myself. I mean, I said, I haven't beaten it because it's one of those games where you do have to like put a week into it. Yes. You have to grind it out. You have to be very good at it.
Yeah, or you have to save state it.
Or, yeah, if you have save states.
Yeah.
But like if you do that, you're never going to be like good at it to be able to beat it again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a Ninja Gaiden thing as well, where it's like, okay, you can beat it one time and it might take you like several hours because it's so brutally hard. The next time you beat it, it's going to take you an hour. The next time you beat it, it's going to take you 40 minutes. It's one of those type of deals.
I'm not sure if this one is quite in. I mean, this one's so long. There's so much.
It's very long.
There's so much that you have to keep in your head.
Yeah.
And know where, like, there's so many stages where you have to know when you make this jump that a spike's going to land on you from above that you have to dodge, or you have to jump on this platform that falls and you have to jump off it before it lands on the spikes. There's so much.
It's kind of like a Kaizo Mario.
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. It could easily be a 4 out of 5 game if they had given unlimited continues or something.
Something. I think for now I'm going to stick it at 3. When I finally go ahead and beat it, maybe I'll give it a different rating. Like, that's one of those things. Like when you finally beat a game and you put time into it, usually your outlook is a little bit better.
Yeah.
But
that's why this one and BioBilly I call kind of experiments. They were throwing stuff against the wall, see what works. It doesn't really improve the overall game, mainly because they hamstrung it. But if they had not made it so difficult to enjoy the variety of levels, it would have been such a better game.
Yeah, and if you want to just play the beat 'em up version of this game, like I said, Battletoads vs. Double Dragon. Yes. They also made it on Super Nintendo. It's a very good game. Or if you want to play this game, basically fixed.
Play the Genesis.
The Sega Genesis version of Battletoads, which I think is actually getting pretty expensive.
Yeah, but again, that's based on the Japanese version, and it sucks less, I think.
Yeah, I know, for example, like the Turbo Tunnel, you can't fall off the sides. Like, you can't fall off the up or down sides of the Turbo Tunnel, which makes it, like, already infinitely easier, but, I mean...
It's still not an easy game, I think, at all.
No, but, I mean, like... It's easier.
I think there still isn't unlimited continues or anything, so you still have to be good. I think it's still, because I think it's based on the Japanese version that gives you 5 lives and 5 continues. Yeah. So you still have to get through 13 levels with that.
The Game Boy Battletoads is also pretty brutal. It has its version of the Turbo Tunnel, which on Game Boy, very hard.
Yeah, and there's a 1 or 2 Super Nintendo one. One of them is just like a straight up beat 'em up.
Yeah, I can't remember what the Battletoads and Battle Maniacs.
Yeah, and then there's another one. I think there's a Super Nintendo version of Battletoads vs. Double Dragon also, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's very good. I mean, it's basically just a port of the NES version,
right?
As far as I can notice, I never beat that game, but I played through a good portion of I think both of them.
I think I've heard people say they like the NES one better for some reason. I think that might have been not the best port, but I don't quote me on that.
I'm trying to think if both versions, if you're able to slam the women in that game by their hair many times over. I think the NES one you can. It's like kind of brutal. I don't remember if they carried that over or not.
Yeah, kind of weird.
But it's kind of shocking to go back and play that because you're just grabbing women by their hair and just slamming them against the floor.
Yeah, and that game was such a weird mashup of the Double Dragon enemies and not just the player characters but the enemies. Like you have a Bobo next to the giant rat.
Yeah,
you know.
I always loved it because that's the game I rented as a kid. And I'm like, man, this is the Battletoads I was looking for.
Yeah.
So you play any of them, and the original NES, like. One of the Battletoads gets captured, so you can't even play with all of them. I forgot who does.
The big guy,
Wart or
Pimple, I believe. I believe you play as
Pimple, Zitz, and
it's Pimple, Zitz, and what's the guy with the shades is Rash.
Right.
Yeah. So you play as Zitz and Rash, and Pimple, the big guy, is the one who gets captured with the princess.
And Pimple's the one I always liked playing in Battletoads vs. Double Dragon.
Yeah, huge. And he's kind of amusing in the arcade one too, because again, there's this cool arcade game that I think came out when Rare was starting to struggle more like later on, and it got out into the arcade and like barely was out before it was gone.
Yeah, and it was a decent game.
It's a fun beat 'em up. It's got wild stages. You got stages with like huge snakes that just reach out and eat you, and just brutal, blood everywhere, really brutal damage moves and stuff. And
the bosses are like gigantic.
Yeah, it's
pretty sweet.
I saw it one time at the student union at UW when I was 18 or something, and that was like the only time I ever saw it in the arcade until recent. When everyone has it again. But.
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably enough about Battletoads. Like that's a game where I think both of us just need to try to grind it out sometime. But again, like dedicating a week to one game that's not an RPG is just like
it's rough.
It's hard for me.
Yeah.
It's like I don't have that kid type of energy anymore.
Yeah.
That can play frustrating stuff and enjoy it all that much.
Yeah, I think I'd be more willing to try the new Battletoads game. I don't know if it was actually good or not, but I've heard interesting things about it.
What did they come out on?
Switch and some of the others.
Okay.
Because, for a while they were talking, I think Microsoft for the longest time was talking about doing a new Battletoads thing, and then they finally kind of did.
I don't even recall it.
Yeah, I don't think it made a huge splash, but it was kind of interesting.
I'll have to try that out.
Yeah.
All right, our last game, Dave.
Our last game is... I think the perfection of the multi-platform game on
pinnacle.
the NES. The pinnacle, yes. And that's Guardian Legend. Which is an action-adventure, Zelda-style game and a shooter. And arguably one of the better versions of both gameplay types, which is wild.
Yes, it is like the perfect mashup.
Yes.
Who made this game again? That was Compile, I think.
It's developed by Compile and published by Broderbund in the US, IREM in Japan, and Nintendo in Europe. And so again, this is Compile. This is the development team that did Xanac and Blazing Lasers. So these are
and Musha and Gundak.
Yeah, these are shooter people for the most part, and so they put together a pretty good standard reliable shooter game, and then they just threw a whole Zelda style action adventure game on top of it.
It's like Zelda in the style of like the top down from Blaster Master.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And actually, funny enough, so I wrote a review on this, which I was actually going to do just as like a standalone, because I haven't done a review in the channel in forever.
Yeah.
And I got through Guardian Legend, and I enjoyed it so much. I'm like, dude, people gotta know about this game. Like, it is fan-freaking-tastic.
And it's actually a sequel. It's called Gardic Gaiden in Japan, which is the sequel to Gardic, which is a MSX game, which is more of a single screen shooter game.
Sure.
Basically, with similar art assets, a lot of the same creatures and stuff you'd recognize. And the Japanese and European box art is kind of wild. It focuses more on this female cyborg protagonist.
I'm actually going to look that up because I was curious. Because the NES box art I'm not a fan of.
No, it's not amazing.
Let's see. We're typing away here. Guardian Legend. What are you gonna look up here? Japanese art?
Yeah. So I mean, it's the U.S. art. It's this creature. It's this face of this creature with the giant eyes and fire coming out and whatever. And I guess that's one of the bosses probably.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
Whereas the Japanese and the U.S. or the Japanese and the European box art, it's this crazy cybernetic.
That's the Guardian.
That's the Guardian.
Yeah.
And she, it's the thing where I mean, Samus Aran has been a big thing for longer, so you think they could get away with it, but they were nervous to show a female protagonist. They were nervous to show. I think they thought it would turn off boys or something, which maybe it would have.
Well, so instead they gave us what essentially looks like a '70s book cover of like a action or a sci-fi adventure book or something. It's weird.
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, in retrospect, seeing a transforming robot lady, that's awesome. Who is a ship? Like you can see the ship wings on her back and stuff.
Looks cool.
Yeah, it's badass.
I mean, that's also the ghost line effect. I always have to go back to it. Is just like why? It's almost like they always gave. I don't know why they did this. I almost want to look this up sometime. Is why they even bother having different art? Is it because like the American publisher or something is just like the American audiences just aren't going to get this, so let's put fucking Fabio on the cover and call it a day?
I think it's Nintendo of America, blame Howard Phillips or whoever thought what they always want to put American action hero looking guys on these boxes, right?
Well, it's like Crystalis again. The box art for Japan, it looks pretty sweet. I would have played that back in the day. It looks like an anime. The box art for US is like this little dainty nerd in a pink tunic. Like, why? I don't want to play this game.
Yeah.
Great, all-time great NES game.
Yes.
Again, box art back in the day would sell a game.
Yeah.
I'd go to a rental store. I'd go to the store.
Yes.
I'm looking at box art. Like, that's all you get sometimes is you get maybe a blurb in Nintendo Power.
Yep.
You get some box art. You get the back of the box.
Yeah.
That's all you got.
Yep.
And when I see Guardian Legend, I'm seeing like okay, there's like some eyes with like blue eyelash. Like I don't like what is this? Like it just doesn't match. It doesn't match the game.
It doesn't tell you anything about what kind of game it is.
No,
at all.
I see somebody in like a metallic butterfly cyborg costume, and that's actually what the game is. Funny enough, but yeah. So about this game, Dave. So it starts you off, and it like the starting of this game actually I think kind of turned me off for a while because it starts you off directly on a shooter level.
Yep.
It goes by so fast, and your weapon sucks so hard.
Yes. That
like the first shooter stage is actually the least fun out of any of the stages.
Yeah, it starts out like a fairly generic, like an old school shooter where you have just a pea shooter and nothing else.
Yeah.
And not a lot of power up. You can get like little life power ups and a few other things, but you're not really sure what they're for yet. There's different kinds of things that give you health and chips and stuff, but you have no use for them yet.
Yeah. It's like, okay, the first boss is actually fairly difficult because, again, like, your weapon sucks. It's almost bullet helly. Like, especially for an NES game, it's kind of bullet helly.
Yeah.
And, you get past the first boss. And then what I always found, like, confusing about the Guardian Legends is just starting it and trying to figure out, like, what you're doing and what to do.
Yeah, it does that weird thing. It's kind of the Legend of Zelda sort of thing where you talk to people and they kind of tell you what you're doing to some extent.
Right, but you gotta find the people, too.
You gotta find the people.
It's kind of confusing.
So this one, you go into what's called a corridor, which is Corridor 0, I believe, is the first one. That's the original stage. And then you go into Area 1 then. You come out of the corridor into the area, and that's like the Zelda type stage.
Yeah.
And you talk to one of these little blue lander guys who, I don't know if it's supposed to be an alien or if it's supposed to be a projection left behind by an alien who died. The idea, I think the idea was they're supposed to be either the aliens who lived at this place or their avatars or whatever. Sure. And they basically give you information about how to get through. Basically, there's like one particular guy who was like the last one left, who was trying to self-destruct the place, but he couldn't set it all off. It didn't work properly. And so he left you instructions on how to get into each of these corridors and set off these bombs so that you could set off the bomb for the whole thing and then fly out and, blaze of glory and all that.
Yeah.
And so, the first guy you talk to, he gives you the story of the game, assuming you
actually, I didn't think that was the first guy. That was like a recording left over that tells you
it was a recording from the first guy.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. And so he basically tells you that and I remember you saying you were a little unsure what you were doing, and what you're doing is you're expanding the area to find all of the keys you need to get to all these corridors, and you're going into each corridor, half of the corridors, the important ones, and beating the boss and closing down that corridor basically. And like half of them, like I say, are important. The other half of them are just for power-ups and stuff.
Which are also pretty goddamn important.
Which are important,
maybe not for speedrunning.
But you can skip them.
Yeah.
And that's why this game has crazy replay value. You can absolutely choose what you want to play, what you want to skip. You can choose what levels or what weapons to focus on. It's wild. So you start out with your basic shot that kind of translates into the Zelda stage where you have this little shot that goes out in front of you in a single stream.
Yeah, and it's like it kind of sucks, but it gets the job done.
It gets the job done, but then you very quickly you figure out that, hey, I can start getting secondary weapons, and there ends up being like 12 of them, I think. And you start out, you get a saber laser that's just like a really short little laser in front of you, and it's
at first it seems terrible, but then it ends up being like the best thing for most of the game.
Yeah, at a certain point you figure out, if I can hold this on an enemy, they die. Like they and you get a fireball that rotates around you. You get a single large shot that you can shoot in all 8 directions quickly. You get a wave attack that does like a semicircle shot ahead of you. You get homing blast and area blaster.
Yeah,
it's all these wild, and that's just in the first area. You get those 5.
I always like I always call it the Kamehameha, but the one where you just shoot a giant like fireball right in front of you that deals like massive damage.
Yeah, and
so my favorite.
The interesting thing is all of those they all can be powered up to 3 different levels.
Yeah,
and
that took me a while to realize too.
Yeah, because you get the weapon and then you see, I can get the weappen again, and when you get it, then it goes from like blue to yellow to red or
to green or whatever.
Whatever. And if you get some of those, some of them just make certain levels a cakewalk.
Yes.
If you get the powered up special weapons. But the interesting thing is they all use chips. Chips are your ammunition, right?
And they're also your currency.
They're also your currency, and they also affect your main weapon. Especially early in the game, if you early in the game, it's a legitimate strategy just to not use any of your special weapons, because if you keep your chips at the maximum, your gun stays at the maximum power.
And that kind of tripped me up for a while.
Yes, but later in the game, it doesn't matter. Later in the game, you mostly have enough chips that your gun stays at full power. But you have to be careful in some of the corridors. If you use your special weapons too much, your main gun gets weaker.
Yeah, and you need the main gun to be good.
Yes.
For most of those corridors.
So it's an interesting strategy. I'm glad that at the end of the game they kind of move past that point.
They do flesh it out quite a bit more, because that's another like I don't know. I guess I will call it an issue, is that in the beginning of the game you don't want to use your special weapons because they get rid of your chips. But also, like, I didn't understand at first like how to even get past the cap of chips. Because you only get like 100 starting out, which can't buy jack, by the way. So you find these shops hidden throughout the map. The shops cost X amount of chips for whatever upgrade you want to purchase. 100 chips doesn't give you like anything. You need at least 150, but you're capped at 100. So I was sitting there like racking my brain. I'm like, how do I do anything? And if I use a special move, then my main attack sucks. So it's kind of like the beginning of the game for me is, I mean, it's once you understand it, it's fine. You have to get those red landers that increase your maximum chips and then thus increase the power of your main weapon and all that. But you don't know those are coming until you start getting them. Or until you just like randomly go on. So the map kind of works like Zelda, where each screen is a block and you go to the next screen, which is another block, whatever. And eventually you get on certain blocks that have side bosses. And that's you have Area 1, like I said, has a few mini bosses, some of which drop new weapons, some of which drop power-ups. And then chip upgrades
and stuff,
whatever.
And then you see these little circles with a little symbol in them. Those are doors with a marking of a key on them, and that tells you can't go here yet. You need to get the key. This opens a corridor.
I did not understand that at all. So I kept going to each one of those little rooms, seeing that key, and I'm like, I texted Dave at one point. I'm like, dude, what do I do? Like, I don't know how to like go throughout this game. Like, I have no clue.
Again, he kind of tells you, hey, I locked all these things. You need to get the keys, which are in these.
And I had no idea what they were talking about. Excuse me?
So it's a little bit of that syndrome of, early NES games like Zelda, where it kind of tells you what you're doing, but you have to sort of figure it out. It doesn't really flesh it out to you in every little...
Or read Nintendo Power.
But yeah, I mean, you have a good variety of weapons. You have a good variety of little power-ups and things. There are power-ups that increase your weapon power and your weapon speed, and you can you can get, I think, 6 of each. And there's different places in the game where you can choose different power-ups. The blue lander guy or whatever sells you 1 of 3 power-ups, but you have to pick which one.
Again, like Zelda. There are certain merchants you find in the game that either get you a heart upgrade or a potion. It's just like that.
Well, and it's the same thing where there's one item you do not want to get because it's a common item and it's a waste. Whereas another item may only be the only place you can get it in the game, kind of thing.
Or it's like a third power-up for like your favorite special attack. Exactly. And you're like, ooh, I gotta pick this.
There's a little bit of that. You have to kind of know what you're doing. There's apparently a trick where if you have enough chips, you can buy multiple things from it if you hold down a certain button. I never got it to work. I never needed it.
I never looked at it.
It was not important. But yeah, so you basically you flesh out Area 1, which is this big main hub world, and then you move on to Corridor 1, which is the first of the true shoot 'em up stages.
And Corridor 1 I did not understand for a while. So Corridor 1, like, literally you go into this little like warp tile, like it puts you into like a corridor door. I don't really know what they call it. But essentially there's this door that you have to figure out how to open in order to get to the shooter stage. It doesn't always make sense, but if you do pay attention, there are hints that tell you almost literally what to do on some of these.
Sometimes some of them like actual literally. Sometimes you have to shoot the door. One time you have to shoot the sign, not the door. One time you have to just wait.
That hint I totally understood too. When it said like shoot stage 2 or whatever it was, I'm like, okay, is that literal?
He means literally shoot.
I'm like, okay.
One, you have to leave and come back and leave and come back until it opens. Like, there's weird stuff.
There's some weird... like, some of that stuff takes too long. It's almost like a bad joke, in a way.
One, you have to shoot it with a specific weapon,
And funny enough, I figured that out right away. I don't know how I did that, but... Yeah, so the first corridor, for example, you have to sit there and shoot at it for like 10 seconds or something ridiculously long. And I didn't understand, because when you hit it, it gives you a sound that sounds like it's not doing anything. So I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll just hold it here. Oh my god, it's opening. And then you get into the first shooter stage, or should I say the second. But Yeah, you go through the shooter stages. Shooter stages are great.
Yeah, that first one's underwater themed, or the first few are underwater themed.
It's very Gundam-esque.
Yeah.
In a way.
There's an interesting trick where, now that you have the sub-weapons, you might be better off turning them off, because if you actually have no sub-weapon selected, it makes your main weapon more powerful. So,
right, yeah.
So early on, when you don't have a lot of chips, you're almost better off just leaving them off.
Yes.
And then just using your main weapon.
And the first sub-weapons kind of suck anyway.
They're not amazing, yeah.
They don't do that much damage.
Yeah.
And you don't get that many, like, chip refills in the early levels to really, like, make use out of them anyway.
Yeah. And when you're killing enemies, they drop a lot of power-ups, a lot of life-ups and chip-ups.
Which
and
is
stuff.
great.
So you can, as long as you're not, I mean, it doesn't have much of an invincibility frame, so if you're not careful, you can keep bumping against the same thing and die.
Yeah.
But you can also just kind of take a few hits, kill something, get the power-up, and be okay.
Yeah, like, you'll know after a while which enemies drop, like, power-ups,
Yeah.
or, like, it's really easy to figure out.
And the bosses, like this, so the end of it has this giant fish. I think he's Fleepa is what he's called. And this is one I remember from Nintendo Power. They literally showed the thing and they made a flipper joke. It was like Fleepa. It's very Nintendo Power did weird shit back then. And so I remember the names of some of these creatures. But it's just a big blue fish with a huge sprite, and you just shoot him and avoid his shots. No big deal. He spits out some little squids at you that you can shoot.
And get power-ups.
Yeah, get power-ups. It's neat. It's fun.
Yeah, all the bosses look great.
Yeah.
Like, they're all huge. They all, they're pretty decked out. Graphically, they look fantastic. The music is great.
Yep.
But yeah, once you beat the boss, generally either the corridor opens up a new area of the map, or it gives you a power-up, or it upgrades your power-up, or it gives you some other sort of power-up.
Yeah, that one you get the repeller, which is a little spiral shot that goes in a circle.
I didn't like that one, yeah.
It gets really good later on.
Oh, does it?
It's one of those, because it stays on the screen forever.
Okay.
And so it's one of those that you just shoot it and then you just dodge and let it do its thing.
Oh, okay. See, that's the thing. There's so many power-ups that, like, the second and third playthroughs, you probably start using different ones that you never did before.
Yeah.
Or, like, max out ones that you didn't try before.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, that's when I first understood, like, exactly what the game was, is once one of the keys kind of opens up other areas of the map, right away you understand, like, okay, each one of these symbols is a key.
Yep.
Each one of these new areas is going to have 2 new corridors.
Yep.
One's going to be for a power-up. One's going to be to unlock a new area.
Yep.
The game, it makes complete sense. And by that point, it's like, all right, it's on.
Yeah, because Area 1 unlocks Corridor 1 and Corridor 11. So Corridor 1 is the one you have to beat the game. Corridor 11 is the bonus corridor for power-ups.
Yeah, and if you don't know, just beat them all anyway.
They're not hard, mostly.
No, it's like 5 minutes of a shooter stage.
And they're fun.
They're fun.
Yeah. And there's interesting. I mean, there's a little bit of repeat. Usually, each boss might repeat once or twice.
So usually they're harder the second time around.
Yeah, more interesting in a lot of cases. Some of them are they just destroy you, like the Optimum thing that shoots out the green seaweed in front of you that just destroys you if you walk through it.
That one sucks so hard.
Yeah, because it stays on the screen. You can't destroy it until you get a power up later in the game. And so early on, you have to be very careful. If you get trapped between the side of the screen and that stuff, you're gonna die. You can't get out of it.
and like the boss fights are very bullet helly.
Yes.
I mean, there's just so much crap coming at you.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Yep.
They deal a lot of damage. Most of them have like a little like enemy that they throw at you that you can kill and get like life upgrades or something. Very helpful. But a lot of it is just throwing projectiles at it and just dodging for the most part.
Yeah, and so you kind of have a pattern for a while where you're at first you're just gathering all the weapons and you're powering up your main gun a little bit. About halfway through the game, you get to the point where your gun's about, not quite, but mostly maxed out, and then your sub-weapons start to get really good. You start to get level 2 and level 3 sub-weapons. The fireball is really good. The hyper laser gets really good.
Is that the twin laser one?
The twin laser, yeah.
Those are very good.
That you can only use, that one you can only use in the shooting stages. All the other weapons you can use in both. And some of them are really good in the adventure stages. Some of them you can beat the sub-bosses super easy.
Yeah, so the adventure stage is like the area map, whatever you want to call it, the Zelda / Blaster Master portion of the game.
Yeah.
For the most part, like the first 2 areas, you don't really need to use any of your sub-weapons. And then it starts getting pretty damn difficult.
Yeah.
Where like there's constantly new enemy types.
Yep.
There are even some that you can't touch with your normal weapon that you have to use, you have to figure out what upgrades can kill them.
Yep.
What I found super interesting was how many sprites can fit on the screen at one time.
Yeah.
Especially if you ever find, I don't know what they call it, I'm going to call it the ice cube enemy.
Yeah.
But you'll walk into a certain screen.
Oh, that one, yes.
Yeah, there's a little ice cube that just keeps multiplying. I think there's also a spider that does that too.
Yeah, one of them, I don't think you can really kill him. You just get out of the screen before he multiplies. You can. Okay, but you need certain weapons, yes. I think, yeah.
Yeah, so the ice cube, for example, I sat there and I tried to see like how many ice cubes I could spawn.
Yeah.
It got to like 20 something on screen, and the game started crawling at that point. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But if you use the screen clearing weapon, wipes them out.
Yeah, there's that weird screen clearing weapon that I didn't really use much except late in the game.
Late in the game, yeah, definitely.
And it's the only weapon in the game that has a specific charge. You can only have so many of them, like 180 max or something like that.
I think it goes up to like 200.
Maybe 200, yeah.
Pretty high.
But you can only get them in certain areas. There's like a limited number of them in the game, kind of. And if you're using them like crazy, you could run out. I never did. They're really good in certain stages at the end, but you don't want to just blow through them.
The shooter stages, the last couple of them,
yes,
I was almost using that in like every scroll.
Yes.
I'm just like,
yes,
there's so much shit. Fucking just clear the screen constantly.
Well, because it clears the screen and then you get power-ups.
Yeah, but there are some enemies that it can't even kill later in the game too. So it's like there's always a trade-off with whatever weapons you want to use.
Yeah, and you start getting some of the weapons like this, like the upgraded grenade, like has this huge area of explosion that you can hide in.
Yeah.
Like you throw the explosion, then you hide in the explosion, so anything that tries to get to you dies.
I never tried that strap, but that actually sounds awesome. Because I couldn't figure out a good use for the grenade.
Yeah, that's what the grenade is really slow, but the level 3 and especially the level 2 and especially the level 3 grenade, you throw it and you hide in the explosion.
Okay.
And there's other weapons. The fireball kind of does a similar thing. There's a few of the weapons. The
fireball,
the repeller does a similar thing.
I always found that the fireball actually cleared, I think, everything in the game.
The upgraded fireball like can clear that seaweed stuff. I think
it can.
It can clear a bunch of stuff that you thought was just completely invincible before.
Yeah.
And it does a ton of damage.
Yeah, that's why I usually use that in the lightsaber.
But again, it starts out, the first level fireball seems useless because it's kind of slow and janky.
It's bad. Yeah.
And so you have to keep trying the different weapons. Like when you get your first level 2 weapon, that may be your best weapon for a while. And then you get another level 2 weapon. Oh, this is way better.
Yeah.
So try different things. Have fun with it.
And that's part of the replay value too. Is like you don't, at least in my playthrough. So I didn't find all of the weapon power ups. Like you get 6 of them.
Yeah, I got all of them.
I even looked at a map and I couldn't find them.
Yeah, some of them. Some of them you can buy from those shops. Some of them, or the guy that lets you get one of 3 things. Yeah. Some of them are from sub bosses. You have to explore all the areas. Every single area.
I know I got all the sub bosses. I was still missing 3 of them. So like I beat the game with like half the power that you normally would.
Wow.
Which is probably why it was so damn difficult.
But again, you can you
totally.
You don't have to get everything to beat the game.
It just makes the bosses harder when like your weapon sucks compared to like if it doesn't. But again, that's where the sub weapons come in, and you use those primarily as your main weapon of attack anyway later on.
Later in the game, I mean, I was just kind of holding down the main gun as an afterthought, and then focusing on my sub weapons.
Yeah. So it's super exciting. It's a great game. You want to explore every single inch of the game. Yeah.
You don't really need a turbo button, I found.
No, it has built-in turbo.
The built-in turbo is different than the controller turbo, but there's not
similar.
They're similar. That you wouldn't really notice a difference mostly.
No, when I was playing, it was like I found myself using both just for shits and giggles. Yeah. But you didn't really need to.
Yeah. Yeah, the huge variety of enemies. I mean, a lot of them are really generic looking. They're not
but they're different.
But they're different. They do different things. You come to be like, oh, those enemies, I hate those.
Yeah. I don't know if some of the enemies, I guess, were beatable, like the ones that just slide up and down. I don't know if there's anything that killed them.
Yeah, there's those little red or blue thing. Yeah, you can kill those, but early on you think they're invincible because you just ting 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 ting. But yeah, you get big fireballs and things later, and they just annihilate.
I never tried, so there's more stuff to go back to.
And the bosses are all mostly pretty good. Some of them are easy, but most of them are interesting.
Some of them are really easy, but it all depends too on whatever strategy you want to use.
So overall, the shooter levels, some of them are better than others. Some of them look like a bad dragon. What's the
Dragon Spirit?
Dragon Spirit level.
Yeah.
And then some of them are almost a Life Force level.
Yep.
And it's kind of that I wish they would improve the graphics in some of the levels. Some of them, they're just a little jarring. They're a little hard on the eyes.
Like the green ones, I think.
Yeah.
Like the jungle shooter areas.
They do a pretty good job mostly. It's not like some shooters where you can't see enemies because they blend into the background. It's not like that, but just some of them, they're not pretty looking.
Right.
The music is mostly pretty good. Some of them look better than others.
Yeah, there's not many tracks that stand out to me, but like at the same time, if I don't notice it in a negative way, it's usually a good thing.
Yes, for sure.
Like it's definitely like an upbeat, like cool sci-fi track. Like it'll keep you engaged in the game for sure.
Yeah, and the game, like I said, doesn't really get so difficult that you stop playing until maybe the very end. There's the very last boss is way harder than you would think.
There was one boss where I found very difficult. It was the second one that drops the line of seaweed.
Yes,
and it was. I think I was missing some power ups at that point, so I took a break just to clear my mind. I'm like, okay, I gotta just explore the rest of the map.
Yeah,
something's got to work, and then I found the second fireball power up worked great. So it's like okay.
And you can get power-ups to your health from your score. So if you're not killing enough things and racking up your score, your health may be lower than it could be, and that will make a difference too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than that, like, I love the Guardian Legend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great game. I think I have to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 5.
Yeah, I would have given it a 5 if it was like consistent life force quality throughout the whole game. I feel like the shooter stages, some of them were just a little too samey and didn't look quite as good. But it's so close. And again, it's a almost Life Force level shooter, and it's one of the better Zelda clones all in one game.
Yeah, if not like the best. Like there's Crystalis and Zelda probably the top tier, but this is like right underneath it. The top down stuff plays better than Blaster Master.
Yes. The
shooter stages play better than like 90% of the generic shitty shooters on the system.
Yeah, like I said, it's I would call it better than Dragon Spirit.
Yes.
I'd say it's probably worse
in
than
its own way.
Yeah, it's probably worse than Gunneck and Life Force.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's any other shooters that are better than it. So I think a 4.5 is safe. I wouldn't argue with a 5, but I don't quite think it's perfect. It's close. It's really close.
Yeah, I say like in this one for me, it's like it's perfect enough in almost all ways. Where it's like, once I figured out how to play the game, I had a really hard time putting it down.
Yeah.
Like, I think I played it for like a straight 4.5 hours one day.
Yeah,
I think this is wonderful.
I think I put this in my top 10 NES, whatever, like games I would take with me on a desert island kind of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking hard about it. I'm like, this is at least in the top 20.
Yes.
And that's a bona fide amazing game list. Like,
yeah, to me, like this and Life Force, and you've got all the shooters you need on the NES, pretty much. Just about.
Probably.
Yeah.
I do have a soft spot in my heart for Dragon Spirit, but like this is better.
It's better.
And what we did mention too is you don't need to beat the game to do this, but there is a code that they give you at the very end of the game.
Oh yes.
To unlock a shooter only version of the game.
Yeah, which is interesting because it gives you all those power ups, but it's based on your score.
Right.
So the better you do, the better weapons you get. But it's a different level of challenge because you can have to get through the stages with much less power ups.
Right, you start with nothing, and it's up to you to be good to get something.
Yeah,
and it's brutal.
It's kind of like a boss rush, but it's not just the bosses; it's the whole levels.
Yeah, it's all the shooter. As far as I know, all the shooter levels. Maybe it's half of them. I couldn't tell you for sure, but if you only like shooter games and you don't feel like playing Zelda, put in the code and play just a great shooter game.
Yeah, it's like I said, definitely one of the top 5 games, arguably the top, second or third shooter on the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want the full experience, just play the game as is. Like, it's awesome.
It's amazing. This is the main reason I wanted to do this episode, because this is how you do a multi-genre game.
Right.
I mean, most games, they are one genre and then they tack on extra things for variety.
Yeah, there might be like some generic shitty shooter stage or something there.
But rarely do you see a game that does 2 genres well. To the point where you couldn't really... I mean, I guess in this case you could make it just the shooter style and it would be fine, but you're missing so much if you don't have both.
Well, yeah, it's like top 3 in 2 different genres on the same console.
Yeah.
Which, like, okay, like...
From a group that mostly just does shooters.
Yeah.
It's kind of like SNK doing Crystalis.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, they don't make anything... What do they make? Like, Metal Slugs or whatever? And then all of a sudden they made, like, a Zelda clone that's top tier.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So that's the Guardian Legend. Like, honestly, dude, this game is $15.
Yeah.
It's not expensive.
Yeah.
It's fairly common. I would say maybe uncommon, but like that doesn't really mean much. Pick it up.
I think I rented and beat this back in the day. This is another one of those that I lucked into, and
yeah, I looked at the box art and I'm like, nah, bro, I'm good. But yeah, go pick up this game. You'll love it once you figure it out. Again, like the learning curve is kind of like the original Zelda. It kind of just throws you in the middle of nowhere. You kind of figure out what to do, but all timer on the NES for sure.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I think there might be a few others, but that's pretty much it for the multi-genre games. I mean, NES didn't branch out that much.
Yeah, if there's any others, I'm sure they're not worth talking about much. But again, the NES library, like 700 and something strong, so there's a lot of stuff to go through on it.
Yeah, I'll have to look through the Japanese games more and see if there's a few that I'm overlooking. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, there's quite a bit more Famicom games that never made it over.
They did some wild stuff that they thought was too experimental to bring over.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's like Monopoly clones for Mega Man and like other just weird shit.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it for this episode of the podcast. But soon we're going to be diving into Super Nintendo beat 'em up games. So stick around for that.